Welcome back to another edition of Big Guy Fantasy Sports Fantasy Football Consistency Show. Of course, I'm Bob Lung. You can find me at Bob_Lung there. And this gentleman to my right, he's been sitting there a lot lately with Colby, not around as much, but Colby be back this week. He's all good. As always, Ron Rigney, and he asked the question, y'all got any more of them good tight ends? Because there ain't many out there. And if they are, they're getting hurt. So, Ron, how's it going, man?
Yeah, these bye, and we know tight end is the catcher of fantasy football anyway. And lo and behold, we've got bye weeks, we've got injuries, and like I was telling you off the air, I know it's bad. I know it's King's Classic with all these flexes and with the tight end, but man, when you're offering up trades for guys like Kate Otten, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, and you're adding Kylan Granson and actually feeling good about it. It's pretty sad state of affairs there at tight end, even more so than it normally is.
I'm starting to think that catchers in Major League Baseball are actually kind of appalled by the fact that we actually compare them to tight ends, to be
Yeah, I
honest
was
with
gonna
you.
say, I was gonna say that's becoming insulting to catchers with what I'm seeing them
Yeah,
do.
I think the catchers are sitting there going, you know what, that I'm very offended by that.
Fair enough.
And they should be because it's bad. It is so bad. Yeah, so yeah, it's ugly out there, and we'll get to that position, of course, but we're back for another week. We've been through week 5, so now we're in the either 100%, 80%, 60%. 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5. That's what we're looking for. But there's a lot of them out there that just aren't pulling their weight. But let's get started at the quarterback position. Justin Herbert still stays as the only 100% quarterback because he had a bye week. Plays Dallas this week. They're coming pissed off this week after getting their asses handed to them by cute little Brock Purdy and company, team named the San Francisco 49ers. So Justin could be in trouble. He may fall off the wagon as the only 100%. We'll see. 80%, there's a ton of them. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Fields, Mahomes, Purdy, Wilson, Love, Sam Howell, Trevor Lawrence, all at 80%. That's a bunch of people that I don't think we expected to be at 80%. A few, maybe. Mahomes, those kind of folks. But we don't see Tua. We don't see Lamar Jackson, Stafford, Jared Goff, Joe Burrow. We can go on Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones. Some players we expected to be doing better, but they're not. Like, I feel like quarterbacks are like, hey, tight ends, here, hold our beer because we're going to show you what inconsistency is all about. The consistency is there in these players, but not the players that anybody drafted. Will we see a shift next year back to the quarterback waiting period like we used to do? Because these second round, third round, fourth round quarterbacks are not all pulling their weight, man.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what to attribute that to and really dive into this and see if it's teams that have better running games than they had last year, or teams that have defenses that are creating more turnovers and maybe being able to score more. I'm not sure what you attribute it to, but as you go down this list here, Joe Burrow's the guy that stands out for me that got off to a hugely slow start. Jamar Chase owners know that as well. Finally looked
Yeah.
like they got it going a little bit last week, so I'm hoping we see an increase in him. But yeah, it looks that way. I mean, you're not getting the clutch games that you thought you were getting, and it's kind of surprising too because there's you watch these guys play, you would think that with the point totals you're seeing on some of these teams that they would have to be 100%, but it's definitely not the case.
I think the more amazing thing is for those that follow this and know what the clutch factor is, that is the points per week that a player needs to have to earn a clutch game. Hence, more clutch games, higher percentage, more consistency, right? Normally, quarterbacks about 19.5 to 20 points, basically 20 points would always get you a clutch game. Right now, the clutch factor is just over 18, and yet we still have these players not as consistent as they have been in the past. Interesting stuff, but Ron, let's take a look, obviously, of these players that we've been talking about. Who's somebody you want to highlight that whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, that you've just kind of kept an eye on and really feel like they're going to continue that consistency and have shown themselves being worthy?
And this is kind of an easy one, and you mentioned this guy and his cute little face before, and it's the guy that is leading that San Francisco juggernaut, and that's Brock Purdy. 7th in total points, 4 out of 5, consistency 80%. sitting there as one of our 80%ers there towards the top. And he's a guy that I just think you forget about him a lot because he's not putting up these huge totals. And now in fantasy, obviously, he's kind of right there as far as a guy that you might start every week in a 12-teamer, just kind of depending on the matchup. But the thing that sticks out for me is the fact that we're through 5 weeks. He has 0 interceptions. Now, I've seen him play a couple times. Other people have as well. He's gotten a couple gifts that have gotten batted down that could have been picks. But 4 touchdowns that first week out. The only thing is, I think he's a little bit more matchup dependent than a lot of our guys here at the top, just because he does have that one game where they went against the Rams, scored 30 points, only threw for 206, didn't turn it over, but didn't throw any touchdown passes either. But he can run. He has the ability to run it in. Got 2 touchdowns on the ground. But the bottom line is all the weapons he has around him. He's got the best left tackle in the game. The guy he's handing the ball to is pretty damn good as well. So there's endless weapons, and there's no reason to think that he can't be that guy and prop this up. They've scored 30 points in every game that they've played, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. Now, Cleveland has been pretty stingy against quarterbacks, so it'd be a tough matchup for him, but it's going to be tough to stop all those weapons that they have, and I see no reason that he can't stay at that 80% or something close to it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, like you said, he's a good game manager, but he also has amazing weapons. So he can throw a screen pass to Christian McCaffrey. You can take it to the house in a heartbeat. Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, Kittle. Last week, they went to Kittle a lot. Everybody kind of forgot that, that guy can catch the ball and he can run, especially on that one pass he caught and outrun most of the defensive backs to the end zone. And that's, of course, George Kittle himself. But, like you said, you got to love the kid. You got to love his heart. Just one of those, Tom Brady-esque type players, right system, right player, right mindset. He can be effective. So he's definitely been doing that. So my guy is Trevor Lawrence, and a lot of people have kind of been down on this guy this year. Certainly when you look at the total points, 16th, that's not where you expected him to be. He was a top 12 kind of guy. I think some people had him a little higher. I think I remember seeing him in the 8-9 range. I have him in a few leagues, mostly are dynasty, where I drafted him, when he came out. Been okay. Again, what's great about him is, again, 80% consistency. He is definitely not setting the world on fire in total points. In fact, I talked about the clutch game, the clutch factor, right? And right now it's 18.07. Here's the interesting part, and I've mentioned this before. As the clutch factor adjusts, so as either quarterback starts scoring more points, it goes up or down. Right now he's at 18.07. Well, he's got 2 games that he was 18.15 and 18.55. So that clutch factor starts adjusting closer to 19. He'll lose 2 of those clutch games. So the 80% consistency is there, but just be cautious that, you see the 80% go, oh, man, I should go trade for him. I bet I can get him in a deal. Be careful what you're looking at. Make sure you look at the details in the consistency report so you can see the game by game. But, yeah, definitely keep an eye on it. Head does have a great matchup this week going against the Colts at home. They're 24th in fantasy points given up to quarterbacks. Should be a fairly high-scoring game. Jacksonville hasn't been that great either. So, Ron, your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence? Would you trade for him if you had a Anthony Richardson or a Stafford or you got somebody that maybe you took a chance on, Geno Smith, Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones? Do you trade for Trevor Lawrence? Do you feel like he'll continue positive consistency?
I think so, and I watched that game last week as a lot of people did, and it seemed like they got Christian Kirk involved a little bit more. Evan Ingram is always going to get his 6 to 8 targets a game, whatever it is, 4 or 5 catches. Calvin Ridley kind of came back to life a little bit. Looks like the trust is there a little bit more. He's had some pretty ugly drops this season. But the thing that I've noticed is in the games that you would look at on Trevor Lawrence's stat sheet and call his better games, 315 against Buffalo, 279 against Houston, and then last week, 241, but had the 2 scores. Those are games where they've gotten the running game going too. And Etienne had a $136 against Buffalo. I believe he had 88 against Houston, and he went last week. I can't remember his total from last week, but he looked a ton better than he has before. So very dependent on that run game. So you might look at the matchups too, not just for Lawrence, but if you want to trade for him, maybe look and see the run defenses are going against too. Because you hear people talk all the time. You're able to run, you're able to do play action. It opens everything up. They've been able to do that. But those 3 games have come in those games that they've got Etienne going. So I think if and I don't have the schedule in front of me, but if it's favorable, but I think it's worth it. But like you said, if you got a guy like Anthony Richardson, especially if you're in a deeper league, you're not going to go get anything off waivers that you're going to feel good about.
Yeah, right. But yeah, there might be somebody out there with Lawrence, and maybe they have a strong backup that's playing better, like a Brock Purdy. So maybe a decent trade to try to grab him and continue to expect that consistency. All right, let's move into the running back position. And the more weeks we play, the further ahead Christian McCaffrey gets from second place. He's now, I think, he's 28 points ahead of second, who, of course, everybody expected. Raheem Mostert is second place overall. I can't even tell you how excited I am every week so far that I've seen him play, because I picked up Mostert in my auction league where I have the Holy Trinity, and I think I paid maybe $4 for him. And I felt dirty about it at the time, because I'm like, he'll get hurt. He's not going to play that much. They have all of these people. They're trying to get Dalvin Cook. They're trying to get, every day you heard they were trying to get another running back, and now you've got him and A-Train, who, of course, now is going to be down for a few weeks, and they're setting the world on fire. And you're like, why did you even think about going to get like a Dalvin Cook when you've got all of this speed in your backfield? So, but yeah, so anyway, so at 100%, McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, David Montgomery, Kenneth Walker at 4-4 and 5-5. Kamara, 2 for 2 since he's come back. And then, of course, Austin Eckler with his one good game as well. Ron, as you look at the running back position, some interesting names up there. Some you expected, some you didn't. Any one of them jump out, and then kind of go into whatever player you wanted to talk about this week as well.
First of all, I want to say I'm happy to announce on one of my Dynasty League teams, I do start David Montgomery and Kenneth Walker at running back every week. So I got that right. Yeah, I got that right. So we love that. But I'd say the one you got to go down a little bit further, but I never would have thought Joe Mixon is 80% consistent. And he's 18th in total points, so he's not right up there in scoring.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that if you would have told me he's 80%, I never would have thought that he would have been a guy, because you don't hear anything about him. All we've heard is that Cincy offense is just struggling. And maybe it's kind of because of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase underachieving, but that's a guy I don't have a lot of shares of him either, so I wouldn't see that.
Yeah, I think I have
never would have thought
maybe one Dynasty League. Like, I didn't go out and get him because, well, he had so much off-field trouble,
right?
Earlier this year with shooting the gun off and all kinds of issues. And I was like, they were talking about getting rid of him, and they weren't even going to re-sign him, and there was just not a lot of love for Joe Mixon in Cincinnati. And then magically one day Zach Taylor just decides that, okay, we're fine with him and we're going to go with him. And it was, so I think a lot of people kind of like, I don't want to take a chance on this guy, but yeah, like you said, it's been pretty decent so far, not setting the world on fire, but you probably draft him as an RB2. So 80% consistent, 18th, can't ask for much more than that. That's for sure. So Ron, who's your running back that you want to talk about this week? Maybe not so much in a good way.
Shame on you, Miles Sanders, 3.1 yards per carry. Shame on you. We're going the opposite direction in this one. And coming off actually one of his clutch games, 72 yards on the ground, had 4 grabs for 26. So he's got a couple of games there where he's caught the ball quite a bit. But when you look at those rushing totals, take out the one where he didn't make it in the end zone, and you have one clutch game there. He's only got 2 to begin with, but only 1 touchdown so far. 3.1 yards per carry. I know that offense is 0-5. I know they're terrible, and I know the defense is not good, and they're going to have to throw it. But Miles Sanders, you got to get something going. They got to try to get him the ball in space. They got to try to get him outside the numbers. The receivers are not there. The tight ends, Hayden Hurst, I love Hayden Hurst, but he's not getting utilized either. You had Tommy Tremble catching the touchdown last week. So I got to see Miles Sanders getting going. I don't have a lot of shares of him, but it's teams where I need some running back production, as we've been talking about, and he's just not getting it for me.
No, he's not. And I was kind of propped him up a little bit going into the year. I thought coming out of Philadelphia if he just kept the rushing yards. But yeah, I don't know if it's a combination of whether it's offensive line or Bryce Young just not doing enough to keep teams honest. I don't know, but it's just not gone well. Like you said, I don't have a lot of shares in him. I just thought he might have a better year, and he was pretty low ID or ADP wise. I forget, maybe I don't know if he was RB2, maybe RB or low RB3, late RB2. I'm not sure, but yeah, definitely not doing well. I had two of them I was going to look at. It was both either Alexander Madison or Isaiah Pacheco. I'm just going to talk about both because in both cases, they're 80% for Madison, 60% for Pacheco, which may surprise many people because everybody thinks Pacheco and Kansas City and the offense, but he has earned 3 straight clutch games. They're going against Denver this week, who we all know is putrid against the run. They're 32nd. And Alexander's going against the team that is 30th, which is Chicago. Obviously, they don't have JJ this week, so they need to kind of control that game, keep Fields off the field, no pun intended. And so, yeah, I just feel like both these guys have been playing pretty well. Both have great matchups this week, so they're probably on everybody's lineup. But just to say, Madison may surprise a lot of people. He's 17th in total points, 80% consistent. You got to remember, after week 3, they traded for Cam Akers because everybody thought Madison was done. Akers has barely sniffed the field. So Madison has certainly proved that it's not as bad as you think. That offensive line is terrible, as you've seen in most games, which is why Kirk Cousins has not been doing well. So your thoughts on those folks as we head towards the wide receiver position?
Yeah, it's Alexander Madison's one that I think that they're going to have to start getting more and more out of. He has looked a little bit better. We know that their defense is terrible, and they're going to be having to throw the ball. So he's the one I have the most shares of. But yeah, he's the one I probably agree with the most on there.
And I think the interesting thing is they are starting to get him more involved in the passing game, which I think is a good thing too. And without JJ, I think they need to do that more because now you don't have the Jefferson deep threat. No, it's going to be Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson. But I think that it's a good time to get Madison involved. He's done a nice job catching the ball, caught a touchdown this past week. So, all right, as we head into the wide receiver position, as always, this is where we do find some of our remaining 100%ers. Stephon Diggs, of course, everybody's favorite person now, Puka Nacua. Keenan Allen, who's off bye week. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was injured, didn't play, so he's still 4 for 4. And shockingly, DK Metcalf, who just had a bye week as well, is 4 for 4. Christian Watson, 2 for 2, and Cooper Kupp, of course, his first one this past week. A lot of guys at 80%. Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Jefferson, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen, Marquise Brown, Debo, Christian Kirk, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton, and Michael Thomas. So, Ron, which one of these guys, maybe in that 80, 100%, is the biggest surprise to you at this point? And then who's your guy that you want to talk about this week?
I would say probably Zay Flowers. And I did like Zay Flowers heading into the season. He's sitting there at 80%, 32nd in total points. But I don't trust, and he's a guy I guess I trust the most in that Baltimore passing game other than Mark Andrews. Thought he'd be a nice little weapon for them to have in the slot, but I definitely didn't think that he would have 4 out of 5 clutch games. So he's probably the most surprising one for me. And then again, Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is a guy I did not trust at all in drafts, kind of like you were saying with Joe Mixon. So good to see him for people that stuck their neck out for him, that he's 80%. It's consistent, especially with the shakiness they have had there at the quarterback spot for the last 3 weeks or so.
All right, who's your guy you want to talk about this week?
Well, you mentioned him already, KJ Osborne, guy that's going to step in. And, we talked about Alexander Madison, and it's going to be something where there's so many targets vacated. I think it's going to benefit everybody. I just want to go with KJ Osborne a little bit over Jordan Addison just because he has a little bit more experience. Not to say that Jordan Addison is not a freak athlete and he hasn't posted some clutch games, but KJ Osborne, they've been kind of the forgotten man there. Did catch a touchdown 2 weeks ago. He's got 3 games with 6 targets or more. Week 1, got 9 targets, caught 5 of those. So I think that we're going to see somewhere around that 8 or 9 target range probably every week. You're going to see the yardage totals bump up, but a guy that was readily available in a lot of leagues. Got him in a couple others. I didn't shell out the amount of fab I needed to, but it only makes sense, for a guy that you're going to get starting number, or at least starting targets and starting possibility out of for the next 4 weeks. Makes sense that people gave up some fab for him, so that's who I'm going to go with. Should see a couple clutch games out of these next few weeks for sure.
Yeah, a lot of the leagues I was in, he's not available. Obviously Kings Classic, definitely not. He was definitely drafted. But yeah, definitely, certainly has looked very good out there. Really looked good after Jefferson went out. I was watching some of that. Definitely was filled the void. And him and Addison, I think, are a good combination. You got TJ Hawkinson. So I think they'll continue to put up the ball. And yeah, we'll see Osborne and Addison continue to be putting up the consistency games. I actually going to go with Michael Thomas, as you already mentioned. And again, just to remind people, hey, did you take a chance on him? I know I did in a few leagues. Good for you, because he's 80% consistent now, 38th in total points. So again, he's really close to, if the clutch factor goes up, he might lose a game or two, but he's been just good enough. And if you got him as your wide receiver 3, or maybe even your wide receiver 4, he's doing what you need out of him. 10 to 12 points a week, not setting the world on fire. That's Chris Olave's job. But he's been doing very good, and that consistency is certainly helping out. So again, if there's somebody out there, maybe they got him on the bench, it's a shallower league, maybe it's 10 teams. If you're struggling, maybe you lost a wide receiver or 2 to injuries, don't hesitate to go out there and maybe grab somebody like him off the waiver wire. He's certainly, or not off the waiver wire, in a trade to try to help your team out. So, all right, Ron, your thoughts on Michael Thomas? I guess he's finally playing. He's played 5 games in a row, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we forget how good that guy was there for a while with the 100 catch seasons. I mean, that seems so long ago, and you got to give the guy credit. He's stuck with it. A lot of guys would have folded their tent and said, I've made some money. I can't do this anymore. I can't get healthy. And he seemed to come back and be a useful piece. He's not that 100 catch guy anymore, but he's definitely out exceeded what I expected out of him heading into this season. Hence the reason I have
it is early.
shares.
We're still only 5 games in.
Right, but still, I mean,
you could pack it in tomorrow, but yeah.
4 out of 5, never would have thought that though.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's talk about some of these good tight ends out there. There ain't a lot of them. Sam Laporta, of course, we all expected this. He's first in total points, 100% consistency. He's ahead of Travis Kelce. All right, Kelce missed 1 week. Give him credit. Who is also 4 for 4. TJ Hawkinson, Evan Ingram at 80%. And of course, 12th in total points, 80% consistent. You know him. You love him. Jonnu Smith. We all thought that was coming, right? Mark Andrews, Logan Thomas, 75%. That's the only ones that are above 60. We have a bunch of them at 60. So, Ron, other than the blatantly obvious Jonnu Smith, I mean, there was a lot of love for Sam Laporta. Rookie tight ends, I wasn't going to take a chance. So sadly, I don't have him in anything. But your thoughts on those upper guys, and then who's the tight end you want to talk about?
Well, and then right off the bat, watch, the Kelce owners need to watch and see it, because they play Thursday this week. He turned his ankle last week, came in, caught the touchdown, but still you could tell he was not 100%. I believe he was a limited participant in practice today. If they're, it's not looking good. Maybe if they played Sunday, I'd feel a little better about it. So if you've got Kelce out there, make sure you go find yourself a backup plan, and hopefully you have a better backup plan than I do, with Kylan Granson being the guy in there. But yeah, honestly, obviously Jonnu Smith, I'd say probably the one that surprises me the most. We talked about him last week, Jake Ferguson, sitting there at 3 for 5 and 60%.
Definitely. All right. So who's your tight end you want to talk about? Good or bad?
Good. Guy I want to focus on is Darren Waller of the Giants, and it's a guy that I think that we expected more out of. We expected a hell of a lot more out of that team in general. But it looked like last week when they were playing Miami that they're trying to find him. They got him involved early and often, ended up with 11 targets. And it was noticeable right off the bat, because I knew that they didn't have Saquon Barkley in there. We know about that receiving core. They've got to get him the ball, and they got to find ways to do it. And they were able to do that last week, went 8 for 86 on those 11 targets. And he's had, in the games where he's been targeted a lot, week 2 against Arizona, 6 for 76. We know that they can't defend the tight end anyway, but it doesn't get any easier this week. They're against Buffalo, second best team in the league fantasy-wise against tight ends. But I feel like as dismal as tight end is, he's a guy that you're going to have – you draft him to start him. You're going to start him, and they're going to have to find ways to get him the ball if they want a prayer at having any shot in any of these games. So I don't think 7-8 targets is going to be out of the realm of possibility from here on out for Darren Waller, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, and this is going to be another pass happy week. They need it. Seattle's not very good in covering tight ends or wide receivers. I'm hoping and praying for a solid week out of Daniel Jones if he plays. I'm hoping his neck's okay. So yeah, let's hope that works out well. I'm going to go with another often injured, but always seemed like he's been around forever, and that's Logan Thomas. I feel like this guy's played for like 25 years, but I know he hasn't. But he's always been one of those guys who are, if he's healthy, he's productive. And so far this year, 3 for 5 or 3 for 4. Of course, he already missed one game. 3 for 4, 75%, 8th in total points. Had a nice week this past week. And now they're going against Atlanta, who are 31st in giving up fantasy points to tight ends. So definitely get him in your lineup if you can this week. He might be on the waiver wire. You never know. He certainly hasn't done much, but done enough. And so definitely if he's out there, try to see if you can grab him and get him in your lineup and against the Atlanta Falcons this week. Do you have any shares of Logan Thomas?
I do not, and he's a guy that he's not available in a lot of leagues either.
Right.
So he's a guy that people have scooped up, but no, I do not have. He's another guy too around that that Zach Ertz range. You're looking at guys there, and he's a guy that was sitting there, but nope, did not pull the trigger on Logan Thomas. Guy that we used to love on this program too.
Yeah, we've always kind of been a fan of his. So as we head into week 6, nice job this week with our DFS team. So Ron, why don't you talk about that one and what else is going on for you, where everybody can find you?
Yeah, went way over that cash pay line in those cash games. Mr. Long profited from that. I won a quintuple up on I did a version of our lineup over on FanDuel. We cashed on DK. Got you some money there. We got you some money if you entered some big tournaments as well. So every once in a while we'll do that. We'll hit on one. It just seemed like everything we had hit, except of course could have done a little better at tight end and quarterback. But I even started Anthony Richardson in mine, and everybody else carried me to winning that one. So hopefully we can keep that rolling this week. I know you guys had what you consider a down week for you guys with the prop bets, but when you're only missing one per week, a down week is still not going to be anything that's going to kill it. So I think we're going to get back on the road with that. So Colby and I will be back this coming week, consistently cashing. Come check out all of our friends over at BigGuyFantasySports.com. Articles posted every day. And I forgot my football card of the week this week. I knew I forgot something when I came up here, but I'll have 2 for you next week. We'll have a bonus edition next week. Yes, sir.
I love it. I should start pulling up. I got like all these ones downstairs of Hall of Fame autographed cards. Ooh. I should bring mine up, like my autographed Hall of Fame card of the week. Remind me next time when you're going to do it, so I can go downstairs and I'll grab one. You can do your one and I'll do my Hall of Fame one.
Awesome. Love that
of course,
stuff.
You can find me at Bob_Lung on Twitter. As Ron said, it was our first losing week. We went 3 for 4 in prop bets. So we're now 23-10 for the year. So still nice, 70%. Gotta love that. But man, it was tough. I forgot I could have won so much more money. I got lazy and I was like, I know I'm gonna get to it. And I was gonna do the A-chain or H-chain or whatever his name is, the alternates all the way up to 100 yards. I could have made so much money there. But I didn't. But we still, like Ron said, so we did the DFS and, I put in just a typical, 50-50 for $5 or $10 or whatever it was. But, we looked at that lineup and we were really happy with it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to slap it up on the Millionaire Maker just to see, whatever that cost, $10, $20, I forget what it was. And when I opened up my DraftKings app and I saw that I had just went up $240. I was like, whoa. And yeah, we missed $1 million by 37 points. I know but we still were 569th.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But still, I'm not sure we could have put in the right quarterback in running back or in tight end at the price that we had to get it. And we didn't have Jamar Chase in. That was the 2 killers. If we could have had Hill and Chase, we still couldn't afford it to anybody else. So it is what it is. Still fun to win a lot more money than you originally put into it. So good job, Ron. And we'll keep rolling with that one, and we'll get back in the prop bet world. And yeah, it was just a tough week. Some weird things happened. So I had Debo Samuel for under 48 yards rushing, right? Or passing or receiving. And I'm watching that game, and he's running the ball well. And he has 2 catches for 14 yards. And I'm like, that's exactly what I was expecting out of this game. And then just as I went to bed, I was just about to turn my phone off, and it said Debo Samuel made a big play. He had a catch for 43 yards. I'm like, damn it. And that was all he had. 3 catches for 55 yards.
Oh,
but
man.
33 of them was on one play.
Yeah.
Like, that hurt. So missed by 7, and one play made a difference. So that would have made us we'd have been 4-3. So, we would have, but that's okay. We'll get it back. We'll get back to our better percentages and keep making everybody money on both DFS and on the prop bet side. So for Ron Rigney, I'm Bob Lung. Everybody take care. God bless. Have a great week. Happy consistency heading into week 6. We're out.